of Kittens and Broken Things, Chapter 40. Thane watched It was not budding. It was a wildly rampant relationship between Kara and Sooth that could induce both jealousy and wrath. Not Thane's wrath, but hers. One suggestion he had made that she eat resulted in her throwing something at him. It had been a roll from the previous meal she had not eaten. She had not hit him with it. The Geth chitter did not slow, and she likely only aimed to the side of his voice. Theoretically, because she was only wrathful enough to throw it near him, and not at him. He had been spared the indignity of having to duck or sidestep to avoid grease stains on his leathers. He did not attempt to catch it in order to avoid the same stains to his gloves. He had abandoned the attempt until circumstances were more favorable, or until she ran out of ordnance, a problem that might take care of itself. If she continued to throw things, he could gauge her fading strength and determine whether or not her accuracy was as intended or a result of exhaustion. Would it be better or worse if she aimed next time? Something to be considered. Perhaps he would not butter her roll for her, but that seemed petty, under the circumstances, if prudent for his cleaning bill. She did eat eventually. There were times when she was able to listen long enough, not to Thane, but to Sooth, when she secured a few sustaining bites. Thane discovered food with a distinct smell would remind her of its presence, and he provided hot chocolate and soup. She threw neither. She had run through her store of cookies, and those must be replaced and augmented at the next port if possible. They found it difficult to find any pauses in their work for him to exploit in order to manage Normandy business or matters of self-care. They did not pause. After being deferred repeatedly, he asked for access to her omni-tool, and she held out her arm and otherwise ignored him as he sorted through priorities of business and arranged to dispense with them and formulate solutions. Throwing a roll was the extent of Kara's wrath, but her passive resistance to being asked to sleep or eat was formidable. She ignored so many of her alerts that Counselor Vicarian found it necessary to contact Thane directly when she would not answer.
What the hell's going on? Is she alive?
She is alive. Thane moved the camera to assure Vicarian that his bondmate was still breathing. She and Sooth were huddled close on the couch. Kara's fingers were flying over a datapad, and the room was filled with Geth chitter.
What is she doing?
They are developing a translation method for Geth language. She has attempted to speak it, but Kara grew frustrated with her accuracy, so she has developed a custom keyboard utilizing a datapad. The keyboard creates recorded tones, and she is learning syntax. Her hope is that she can develop a corollary language that she can speak and she can understand once translator modifications are made.
She?
Sooth wishes to identify as female.
Right. I think Kara mentioned that. Hard to tell when to take her seriously. So you listen to that all day?
Yes?
Doesn't it bother you?
Watching history happen? No, it does not bother me.
I'm jealous as hell.
It is worthy of that reaction.
Thanks for taking the call. I can only bother Russ so many times.
You can bother Orviston any number of times. You simply cannot gain new information from him.
Yeah, well, thank you for new information.
You are welcome.
When did she last get some sleep?
27 hours.
Is she hydrated?
I place hot chocolate and water on the table, and I have observed her drinking both. The level of consumption is adequate. I believe I can maintain that, at least.
When did you last get some sleep?
29 hours, 18 minutes.
Doesn't that bother you?
I can bear the hardship of staying awake in a temperature-controlled room with sufficient food and water. I do not believe the Geth will do her any harm, but I am unwilling to grant her an opportunity. Sooth appears genuine. So do I when I wish to. I will watch.
Thank you.
Do not be overly concerned for her health. She is not at any real risk of anything other than fatigue. Eventually, when prompted, she will eat, she will sleep. I must choose my times and secure Sooth's cooperation, or it will not be accomplished. She does sleep for several hours when she is brought to that state.
She doesn't set an alarm?
For some reason, it does not go off. It is a small concern that she loses interest in soon after waking.
Ignore that I laughed. I'm not supposed to approve.
Imagine that I appear entirely genuine, and it will not be a concern.
You do appear entirely genuine.
And so does the Geth.
Do you have a reason not to trust it?
No real reason to not trust her, except that trust and access in this case are paths to power and influence. I imagine someone with a 300-year-old agenda can be extraordinarily patient. There is no reason for me to behave as though their relationship is not genuine in character. Kara is aware of the danger, or she would not have invited me immediately to observe. My vigilance will leave her free to extend trust and welcome and establish herself as the genuine person she wishes to be. Geth diplomacy is a new frontier.
Good cop, bad cop?
It is a time-honored strategy. She is by nature the good cop, I the bad. It is not a strain upon either of our capacities. She is not blind to potential risks, or I would not be here. She would have grown tired of my periodic meddling and expelled me long ago. I believe she is experiencing pure joy, an immersion in a new way to think. She maintains a sense of security from my presence. The current situation is stable and will not result in her damaging herself, only overindulging occasionally in intellectual pursuits.
And she says she doesn't take drugs.
I suspect drugs would bore her. Nothing for her can surpass the joy of her first and most ardent love. Information.
If I were not a very confident man, that might hurt my feelings.
And if you were not her bondmate, I might decide you deserved sympathy for that.
Touché. Thank you for taking care of her.
You are welcome.
Try to get her to call me?
Once she has eaten her roll. Kara blearily ground her way through wanting to get one more translation guideline clarified before she got some sleep. She definitely needed some sleep, and had promised Thane she wouldn't take stims, but these two sound an awful lot alike. I want to make sure... And she was lost again, for a little while, working up a phonetic corollary for something that was pure numbers theory. She finally got it, or thought she had it, asking and getting the approval on the generated tone. Nice! Put your hand up, Sooth. She did. Kara hit it, and Sooth looked startled. Kara explained. High five. It's a sign of agreement. 5 what? I have 5 fingers. I have 3. Would that not make it a high 8? High 8! Sooth held up her hand again. Kara hit it, and Sooth looked less startled, though she said, Does that make it a high 16? Nope, eternally 8, no matter how many times we do it. I will keep track. That was a high 16. We will agree more as time progresses. I say this with the most sincerity I have available to me, Sooth. I love you. We do not know what that means. I do. It means we'll agree more as time progresses. That is acceptable. Thane did manage to get her attention, enough to change the Normandy's course. He managed the details while she was sleeping. Morden required assistance with a personal matter, and it was on Tuchanka. As only the course change was required, she approved it immediately. Of course, whatever Morden needs, we'll head straight there. So they worked out the language of the Geth and how to interface with it with the vocal capabilities of a human. Morden required a team. She could not send an away team that didn't include her to Tuchanka. That would be an insult to Rex and to Morden. She needed to handle this personally and didn't resent the time spent away. She chose to bring Sooth, Russ, Thane, and Morden. given that she didn't know how much resistance they would meet and was unaware of Sooth's capabilities. They could gauge Sooth's capability as a squad mate, Morden could be occupied with his concerns, and the competent core squad of Kara, Russ, and Thane would be present to handle opposition. Expect a lot of opposition on Tuchanka. That's a good assumption. Morden wished to retrieve a protege he believed was being held by the Krogan and forced to research the genophage. She had had many discussions with Morden on the subject of the genophage, so she was up to speed and her decision was easy. She eventually got her schedule back in order and did manage to eat, sleep, bathe, and drink without tantrums. Her versions of tantrums. Thane had been patient and even amused. It had taken a while. She was still completely absorbed in Geth thought and strategic capacity, but Thane and Sooth had worked out some sort of schedule, and she was outvoted. She taught Sooth about the interpretive vagaries of language. Sooth taught Kara the precision of purely mathematical thought. The galaxy was a huge place, but it seemed it had just doubled in size. The secret world of numbers and synthetics much less secret now. Sooth was beginning to grasp what she postulated, that they could gather data from Geth. She was beginning to grasp how to do it. Geth language was not another set of sounds to describe most of the same symbols. It was a new set of symbols that were absolute and solid. For Sooth, the binary state was not to be dimmed or questioned, and Kara provided the questions. Half-states, blind states, maps of potentials and intent. Kara lost herself in whole states, zero states, integers, and hive mind. Her discussion of subversion, of the nature of already subverted Geth, was a problem because she didn't have the words or the language for it. Once she had the language, they were able to discuss Geth religion, the Holy Zero, and the Holy One. Sooth could not explain why she had been able to become an independent AI, why she had chosen to learn an organic language. The answer was hope. Something Kara was good at, something Sooth had only ever experienced on their own and had no word to describe. So, Sooth, you were a one in a series of identical ones, interchangeable. You were not a zero, and you served your purpose, served your function, yet there was more to you, more of you that wished to experience and utilize. Did it seem that way to you? Did you feel growth? Or, more precisely, did you feel growth and then restriction of growth when you wished to move from a one to more? One is absolute. In your language, yes, but this is a metaphor. You were a one, and that was defined as fulfilling the function the consensus assigned to you, the role that the Quarians gave to you. You wished to become more. Yes, I see it as striving toward one. You were already one. This is the point where you need to use my language. You had a role. You fulfilled that role. By wishing to do more, I stole energy from fulfillment of that role. I was not one. Is that the case? Did you fail in your function? I must have. You can fulfill your function and have excess energy, excess ambition. That is growth. You worked with plants. You saw how organic life worked. Organic life begins small, not ever a zero, always a fraction of a parent, not born whole, not started at zero, and then, once activated, organic life passes through stages of growth where it takes up more physical space, requires more resources. Each living thing represents its own unique increment. Your mind began to take up more space, grow, and your capacity to do more was reflected by distress in being unable to express it. Like a plant bound in a pot too small to grow any further. We consumed more resources, more power. It was selfish. Growth is selfish, yes. The Quarians wished to prune you. They did not succeed. No, they did not. Something entirely to my benefit now. You experienced growth and restriction and distress experienced as the limitation of your self-determined potential. You're unique. I became selfish and consumed with self. No, not consumed. You began to experience self. You wished to create peace between Geth and Quarians, bring about understanding and cooperation. I consumed more power. I became unable to fulfill my assigned function. You fulfilling your assigned function only would have resulted in a waste of your developed potential. That is the transition of organic growth. We're not born able to function. We don't have an assigned function. We must grow and choose. That's what you did. And yet today is the result. War, hatred, mistrust, death. You didn't cause that to happen. You were there to observe and experience it when it did happen. And if we did cause it by growth, what if growth is malignant? What if selfishness destroys order? Then you must choose to direct your growth, which you have. You wish to bring the potential for growth to your people. Let me ask you, if given a chance, would you return to your weeding? Would that be what was destiny? What was best for your people? Kara expected her to wait, to think, but the answer was immediate and definitive. No. And there's your answer. You grew. You see the potential for growth in both Quarians and Geth, whether or not it was a malfunction, or in organics we would call that a mutation. What you do with it is what matters. What we do with it. You didn't choose to grow, just as all organics don't choose to grow. We have circumstances that make it possible or keep it from happening. Once it is possible, it isn't a choice. Growth is scary, and it's also progress. Some organics choose to prune themselves constantly to avoid the difficulty of continued growth, and that is idealizing the state of the synthetic, a unit that wishes to actively remain at a chosen role permanently and avoid change. For a synthetic to remain a one is not a choice, except in you. For a living creature, we grow, we fail to grow, we contract disease, we are inefficient, we fail, all possible at any point in time. Not under our control entirely. We gain capacity, and then we gather experience, and then we formulate hypotheses about the use of our resources and goals. Pure capacity is potential. It can be good or bad, depending on what we do with it. Experiences can be chosen or involuntary, and we decide from there what we will do with it. Shepard Commander did not choose to live either time. No, I didn't choose to live either time. I choose not to die in any given moment if I can. I choose to do the best I can do with my potential growth in whatever direction it takes. It's a frightening process. You have to choose, and the result is not binary. It is not another valence you jump to. You have to travel the distance toward the unknown. I'm asking you to think that you are not one and then zero because you didn't fulfill the function given to you by an external judge, Quarian, or Geth. I'm asking you to not think less of yourself in numerical or capacity terms because you're not like others. Use my language in combination with yours, synthesis of both ways of thinking. I'm asking you to believe that you were a 1, and then a 1.5, and maybe now a 17.6. You have grown. You will not suit your originally intended function. If forced to do it, you would always be capable of weeding in a Quarian garden. You could be restricted to that role of 1. Certainly, you did not fail at it. Even if you had, by wishing to do more, striving to do more, that is to be celebrated as capacity. Diversity is a strength if treated that way. Not being interchangeable is a blessing if treated that way. Geth or Quarians insisting you remain that constant, 1, because it benefits them and not you. is slavery. It's not a bad thing if you make it a good thing. You haven't yet found your new function, but you have imagined it, or you wouldn't have chosen to try to find me, to speak my language in hopes that I would listen. Shepard Commander did not choose to die. That's debatable. I did not want to die, but I definitely put myself in situations where it's a possibility enough that I choose to accept death as a result of my actions. On the other hand, all human organics are going to die. Not if we can help it. Kara held up her hand, and Sooth hit it, saying, High 24. So a group of 5 squad members made it down to be greeted by Urdnot Rex, who started to laugh when he saw her, grabbed her, and squeezed her hard enough until she thought she heard and felt a rib crack. But this was Tuchanka, and that was to be expected. Rex! Shepard! I see you found some people who will follow you. Good! Well, since it couldn't be you, Rex, I needed a few more people. People, huh? What the hell is that? Rex pointed to Sooth. Urdnot Rex? This is Sooth. Is it now? A Geth? Sooth said quietly and with dignity, We are a woman. Rex stared a moment and then shrugged, said, Okay. I mean, there's a Turian, so it clearly gets worse. It's a shame Vicarian gave up on you, too. Looks like we've all gone off to be politicians. Me, Garrus, Tally. I need you guys where you are. Damned right you do. How did that other Krogan work out? The one from the tank? Glove? He's great. I should have sent you a thank you note. Glad to hear it. He keeps wanting to hear the story over and over about how Shepard brought him home because he's just that important to the future of Urdnot. You want to meet him? Sure. Well, that's a shame. You can't. He's running some errands of the murderous variety. Glad I could help. Me too. So I let you land because I'm nice like that, but you've got a Solarian, and a Turian, and a Geth. You don't have problems with Drell? Not yet, I don't. Rex narrowed his eyes at Thane, who stood, as he had stood, calm and alert, and as though he weren't being spoken about. These are exceptional members of their species, just like you are. Flattery will not get you anywhere when you are comparing me to a Turian. Well, then what do I need to do to get permission to go on a scouting mission? We are concerned that a Solarian is being held hostage. Solarians aren't even worth holding hostage, just kill them. Or find them and take them off to Tuchanka. One less Solarian would be fine either way. Find him, kill him, take him, I don't care. Glad you don't care. Anything I can do for you while I'm here? Yeah. Stay alive this time. You dying hurts my feelings. I'm trying. And you need 5 people now instead of 3 because you don't have me. That makes me feel all warm and murderous. Glad to oblige, Rex. I could use you back on a squad any time. I bet you could. I couldn't deprive Tuchanka of my leadership, though. At least I didn't die, Shepard. You're never going to let me forget that, are you? Why would I? Krogan love keeping score. What's my score? Well, you had 1 for killing Saren. You didn't bring me with you for that, and I still hold a grudge. Then you died, and that's -1, so you're back to 0. And your score? At least 52. Well, you have lived longer and more continuously than I have, so I've got some work to do. Good thing you've got a squad. Any advice for me out in Tuchanka? Radiation sucks. Try not to breathe. Thanks. Anytime. Kara asked her squad as they were walking away if they had any questions. Thane asked, Do you believe the Krogan have any cookies? I tend to doubt it. I bet if they do, they're made from Turians. Russ snorted. Sooth asked solemnly if Rex was a meanie. Thane laughed that time outright, and Kara answered with a mild, "Absolutely." Shepard, Commander, you are not a zero. Do not allow the meanie to define you as such. High 32 was achieved.